main misconception that a lot of people think is that if you're Cypriot, the default is that you're Greek, which is not true, because obviously if you're a Greek speaking Cypriot, it's very different to being Greek. And also it completely erases all other Cypriots, whether you're a Turkish speaking Cypriot, you're a Maronite Cypriot, you are an Armenian Cypriot, you know, you're from the Cypriot Roma population. Assuming that Greek is the default erases a lot of the island, and it erases a lot of Cypriots. So I think that is 100% the biggest misconception.
The most common misconception I always come across is when I tell people I'm Cypriot and people automatically assume you're either Turkish or Greek. This is annoying because you then go explain to people that Cyprus is a completely different country to Turkey and Greece, and that it has its own traditions and its own culture.
Oh, also another misconception, specifically maybe for the Greek-speaking community, is that we smash plates. We don't do that. That's very much a Greek thing that originated from Greece, and it irks me when the first thing that people say when I tell them I'm Cypriot is, oh, so you smash plates? No, we don't do that. So it's a very small thing, but I think it's a really, really huge misconception.
I think the biggest misconception that I get from both Cypriots and non-Cypriots, but more so non-Cypriots, is that whether you're Greek Cypriot or you're Turkish Cypriot, we all have this innate ability to hate the other side, which I always try to nip in the bud because it's entirely untrue. I firmly believe that the hatred that some Cypriots have, not all Cypriots have, is indoctrinated because of nationalist ideas. I was lucky enough to not be indoctrinated into that, and I try to, where I can, unravel that for other people. A lot of my work is based around that, my artwork and my performance work. I just think that we are Cypriot first before we're anything else, and I think that's what a lot of people forget most of the time. I would say that's another misconception, that, you know, Greek Cypriots are Greeks and Turkish Cypriots are Turkish. We're Cypriot first, is my firm belief. So yeah, I mean, I have family members myself who are Turkish Cypriot. My own brother is half Turkish Cypriot, so I've never had that innate hatred of the other side. And in fact, learning about my compatriots has allowed myself to be a better Cypriot, because I'm more in tune now with my Cypriotness than with anything else, and that's because of a shared experience and a willingness and curiosity to learn about each other rather than take firsthand what we've been told by other people. So yeah,
I'd say the most common misconception about being Cypriot that I've heard would be, sometimes if I'm asked where I'm from, so I'd say, okay, I'm Greek Cypriot, and then the question would come back and say, oh, do you go back to Greece often for a holiday? And sometimes, yeah, that makes me laugh a little, because that connection between Cyprus and Greece is always there. So I'd say that's the most common misconception, definitely, that I've heard.
I've definitely come across perceptions of Cypriot meaning potentially untrustworthy for whatever reason, I don't know. Also, Cyprus is often confused with just being another Greek island, like Corfu, Crete, Cyprus. So I think there's a misconception that it's just part of Greece and isn't, you know, where it is, which is almost in the Middle East. So it has a lot of kind of influences from the Middle East and North Africa, possibly more than Greece does, which I think is something people, because it's part of Europe, people don't see that part. Other than that, I don't know really. I guess there's always the idealizing of Southern Europe, kind of culturally, in terms of a lot of warmth and this kind of idyllic island. And a lot of that has definitely some basis in reality. But as with any country, there is, and any kind of set of people, it's never quite this idyll that people might imagine. And I guess people can be surprised when they realise the division in the country and how long that's lasted and how kind of present that is still in people's minds.
I think the most common misconception is that I can speak Greek, and that if I'm a Turkish-speaking Cypriot, then I can't be a Cypriot because I'm Turkish. But yeah, that's obviously not the case. Another misconception is that where I'm from is very dangerous. You know, soldiers everywhere, you can't do anything. You can get shot at any second from the soldiers. Well, when in fact it's one of the safest places, you know, where I feel the most safe there than anywhere else, to be honest. Yeah, and yeah, you know, you get these documentaries on like Netflix, Dark Tourist, and it shows you the other side, and it's just like fear mongering, really. So yeah, that's the most common misconceptions. I'll probably say also, like, I know all the holiday destinations in Cyprus. Oh yeah, I went to Paphos last week. Do you know this specific hotel? That's the...
There are three main misconceptions that I hear about Cyprus quite often. Firstly, that Cyprus is a Greek island, or part of Greece, or part of Turkey, when in reality Cyprus is its own sovereign nation. Secondly, that there is no such thing as Turkish Cypriots, that they only came into existence after 74, which again is incorrect. And thirdly, that you can only be Cypriot if you're Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot, which again is false. As the constitution shows, there are minority communities in Cyprus too, including the Armenian Cypriots, the Latin Cypriots, and Maronite Cypriots.
There are a few misconceptions that I've experienced about being Cypriots from the wider public, I would say. When I told people at school that I was from Cyprus, there were a lot of people said things like, "Oh wow, you're from Greece," or "You're from a village in Greece," or "An island from Greece," or "Oh, Cyprus, is that's Turkey, correct?" So a few things like that. A lot of people do not recognize that Cyprus is its own island, its own space, but also a lot of people think Cyprus is just a big iron apple throughout, which is completely wrong. I've had a lot of conversations like that with a lot of people.
Oh my God, so many. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with this one. We have somehow reached the point where Cyprus is spoken about solely in terms of Greek and Turkish. And there's this obviously, you know, the elephant in the room is what happened in the 60s and the 70s. And I don't think that there's enough time now to discuss the nuances of that and how that narrative has become distorted and hijacked by the wrong voices. But there is this very Orientalist perception among non-Cypriots, particularly among Western people, that Cyprus is populated by eternally warring peoples, groups that have always hated each other and have always had ancient feuds, which is ridiculous. But, you know, this is where ethnic nationalism makes the problem worse, because when you insist that Cypriot children are either Greek or Turkish, you are exacerbating this artificial binary. So yeah, I would say that this is the most common misperception of Cyprus, is that we are divided between Greeks and Turks who have always hated each other and always will.
Any common misconceptions? I would say that we live in the kitchen, we all eat olives, and that we're party animals.
So I have this one. People often think that in Cyprus we either only speak Turkish or Greek. So I have to explain to them that we actually do have Cypriot dialect. It's not just Greek or Turkish.
I'd say some of the misconceptions I have personally faced with being Cypriot goes hand in hand with misconceptions about immigrants in general, which are immigrants are lazy, they come to take jobs. I've had people tell me that I probably can't speak English properly and that I should go back to my country.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of common misconceptions about being Cypriot. I think, among other things, that we're Greek or that we're Turkish are the two obvious ones, but also maybe that we're very conservative. And, to a certain extent, that's true in some respects, but in other respects, there's many people who aren't. Also, that the religion or the church has a real influence over us, or that we're, religious people. Again, that depends. And yeah, that maybe we hate each other. I don't know. Like if if you say you're Greek Cypriot or something, people automatically assume that you hate other Cypriots who are Turkish Cypriot or whatever, and vice versa, I assume as well. So lots of preconceptions I think people have about being Cypriot, which is a shame.
I guess this is a bit of a funny one, but people always assume that because I'm from Cyprus, I can handle the heat, but that is not true. I can never handle the heat. I guess people think that all Cypriots are super open and super outgoing and extroverted, but personally I've always been an introvert myself, and I know a lot of people from Cyprus who are the same, so that's a bit of a misconception that just because we're Mediterranean, we are all super outgoing.
I think the biggest misconception I get is people understanding where I'm from and my background, my ethnicity as well. I'll always get, are you from Turkey, if I speak Turkish, or if I say I'm from Cyprus, are you Greek? And I think there's a lot of education that is needed to understand the different types of Cypriots that are on our beautiful island.
There isn't many misconceptions, I would say. I think a lot of people would assume if you are identifying as Cypriot that you have to be 100% by blood Cypriot, but for me, I do not think that is the case. I know many people that have moved to Cyprus that don't have any genetic association with being Cypriot, but they are more culturally involved than some people that are born and raised there. So I think it is all up to that person's passion and love for that culture if they want to preserve it. I think that might be the biggest thing for me that I've come across.
Okay, so common misconception about Cypriots is a lot of people assume that we're Greek or Turkish for that matter, that we're either from Greece or we're from Turkey, but we're not. We're from Cyprus. Cyprus is an independent country. It's our own island. So I think, yeah, that's a common misconception, one that I feel quite strongly about.
I'm not really sure. I don't think so. I guess potentially there's not a lot of knowledge about the divide and about the history of the island. But I think that's all I've come across.
I think the main one is people saying, asking if you're from Greece. And then being very confused when you're trying to explain it's a different country, and that probably we do have a lot in common, but I think we also have a very distinct culture aside from Greeks, and so I think for some people that's really surprising.
In my work life, mostly people have seen Greek characters on TV, on Harry Enfield doing his Stavros caricature, and I think that having been born and brought up in Britain, educated in Britain, we are very English in our ways to an extent, and people expect us to be something else, to sound different, to talk different. They're not necessarily aware that, for example, that the Greeks were one of the first nations to become Christianized, and I don't think they understand the concept of Orthodox Christianity, being more Protestant or Catholic in the West.
Yeah, sometimes when I tell people I'm Cypriot, they don't necessarily associate that with being Greek or Turkish. So yeah, I guess people don't realise. And also when I say I'm Greek Cypriot, sometimes people think I'm from Greece. So yeah, there is a bit of confusion over what the word Cypriot actually means.